These bilateral lower body lifts are cornerstones of strength and performance. Two of them emphasize prime movers, the back squat and the deadlift, while the overhead squat and the RDL focus on stability, mobility, and eccentric control. I'll explain purpose, biomechanics, key muscles, common errors, cues, and safe modifications. The back squat develops maximal force through hip and knee extension. Prime movers include quadriceps, glute maximus, and adductor magnus. Synergists are hamstrings, core, and erector spinae. A shoulder width stance keeps the line of force vertical and balances quad glute activation, while a wider stance increases hip contribution. Common errors include forward torso lean, lumbar flexion, and knee valgus, often from limited ankle dorsiflexion or weak hip rotators. For fixing this, you could say brace the core, keep the chest tall, and drive knees out. Corrective exercises include heel elevated glove squat, ankle mobility drills, and hip airplanes. If shoulder mobility limits bar placement, use a high bar or a safety bar squat. The overhead squat challenges global stability and kinetic chain coordination. It demands scapular upward rotation, thoracic extension, and ankle mobility to keep the bar over the midfoot. Stabilizers include rotator cuff, core, glutes, and hamstrings. Common errors include bar drifting forward, lumbar arch, or knee collapse, usually from tight lats, poor thoracic extension, or ankle restriction. For fixing this, you could say stack the bar over the midfoot, ribs down, sit between your heels, and for corrective exercises, maybe wall-facing squats, thoracic extensions, ankle mobility work. If overhead mobility is limited, use a front squat or unilateral overhead variation to maintain similar demands on balance and anti-rotational stability. The deadlift builds posterior chain force and resilience through hip and knee extension. Prime movers are glute maximus and hamstrings, and stabilizers are erector spinae, trapezius, and lats. Setup: bar over midfoot, neutral spine and shoulders slightly in front of the bar. Common errors include lumbar rounding or bar drifting away, often from tight hamstrings or weak spinal erectors. For fixing this, you could say brace, engage the lats, and push the floor away. Corrective exercises are hip hinge drills, tempo deadlifts, and even RDLs. For longer femurs or mobility limits, modify with trap bar or rack pull variations to keep neutral angles. The RDL strains eccentric control of the hamstrings and glutes, improving stiffness and deceleration. It's a poor hip hinge with minimal knee flexion and constant tension through posterior fascia. Prime movers are hamstrings and glutes, synergists, erectors, and scapular retractors. Common errors include bending the knees too much or rounding the back, usually from weak proprioception or hamstring tightness. For fixing this, you could say push your hips back, keep a long spine, and feel the stretch. Corrective exercises are dowel hinges, single leg RDLs, and eccentric tempo training. Modify range if flexibility limits control, or use a stagger stance RDL to mimic unilateral sport mechanics. In short, the back squat and deadlift target prime mover strength, while the overhead squat and RDL refine stability and mobility. Together, they train force production, absorption, and transfer core requirements for athletic performance. Mastering these foundations ensures stronger, safer, and more efficient movements across every sport.